I knew something was wrong the moment I realized I'd stopped being a person in my own house. Not overnight. It took months, maybe longer, before I could name it. But once I did, I couldn't unsee it. My wife Emma talked to me the way you'd talk to a piece of furniture that happened to be blocking your path. Polite, distant, already thinking about the next room. We lived in a 2-story colonial in Riverside, one of those neighborhoods where everyone mows their lawn on Saturday and waves from their driveway. I'd bought the place 8 years ago before we got married, back when I thought having a garage and a backyard meant I'd made it. I was a facilities manager at Crescent Valley Medical Center, which sounds more impressive than it is. Mostly, I made sure the HVAC worked, the generators kicked on during storms, and the surgical wing didn't flood when the pipes froze in February. Emma worked in corporate HR at Dennison and Price, a consulting firm downtown. She coordinated projects, managed schedules, made sure everyone felt heard during team-building exercises. She was good at managing people, reading rooms, knowing exactly what to say to make someone feel important or irrelevant, depending on what she needed. I noticed the shift sometime around March. It started with her phone. She'd always been on it. Her job required constant communication. But now she angled the screen away from me when I walked past. Little adjustments, subtle shifts in posture. If I came into the kitchen while she was texting, she'd set it face down on the counter and ask if I needed something, her tone pleasant but final, like she was wrapping up a conversation with a delivery driver. Then came the schedule gaps. "I'm meeting Jenna for dinner on Thursday," she'd say, already halfway out the door. "Jenna from yoga?" I'd ask. "Yeah, we're trying that new place on Prospect." But Thursday would come and go, and when I'd mention it later, casually, not accusatory, she'd blink at me like I'd asked her to solve a calculus problem. "That was Tuesday," she'd say. "Thursday I worked late." I didn't argue. I just made a mental note and kept moving. By April, she'd redecorated her side of the bedroom. New bedding, new throw pillows, a different lamp on her nightstand. I came home one afternoon and found the old comforter, one we'd picked out together 3 years ago, folded in a donation bag by the garage door. "It was time for a change," she said when I asked about it. "You could have mentioned it." I didn't think it was a big deal. It wasn't. That was the problem. Nothing was ever a big deal, but everything was different. The conversations got shorter. When I'd tell her about work, a busted boiler, a contractor who didn't show, anything, she'd nod and say, "That sounds stressful," without looking up from her laptop. If I asked about her day, she'd give me a bulleted summary that felt like she was briefing a committee. "Project went well. Teams aligned. I'll need to travel to the Chicago office next month, probably 3 days. Which days? TBD. I'll let you know." She never did. One night in early May, I made dinner. Chicken, roasted vegetables, rice. I'd stopped at the store on my way home, spent an hour in the kitchen, set the table like we used to do when we first moved in. She walked in at 7:30, glanced at the spread, and said, "Oh, I ate already. Grabbed something with Jenna after work." She didn't apologize, didn't offer to sit with me while I ate. Just poured herself a glass of wine, took it upstairs, and closed the bedroom door. I sat at the table alone, eating chicken that had gone cold, and realized I couldn't remember the last time she'd asked me a question about anything that mattered. The thing about being underestimated is that it gives you time to watch, and I'm good at watching. Facilities management is 90% observation. You learn to spot the leak before the ceiling caves in, the electrical hum before the breaker blows. You notice patterns. Emma's patterns were changing. She started going to the gym at odd hours, 6 a.m. on Tuesdays, 8 p.m. on Fridays. She bought new workout clothes, expensive ones, the kind that came in sleek black packaging with minimalist logos. She wore perfume when she left the house, even for grocery runs. I didn't ask about it. I just filed it away. One Saturday morning, I was fixing the garbage disposal. Motor had seized up, needed a new gasket, and I found a receipt in the kitchen drawer. Dinner at Monarch, a steakhouse downtown, 2 entrees, 2 drinks, dessert, $140, date stamp, May 10th. May 10th was a Thursday. The Thursday she'd said she was working late. I held the receipt for a long time, standing there with grease on my hands and the disposal in pieces on the counter. Then I folded it, put it back in the drawer, and finished fixing the sink. That night, Emma came home at 9. She set her purse on the counter, kicked off her heels, and poured herself wine. "How was work?" I asked. "Long," she said. "We're understaffed. Everyone's covering for everyone else." I nodded. "You eat?" "Grabbed something at my desk. What did you have?" She paused, just for half a second, then smiled. "Salad, from that place on 5th. I smiled back. "Sounds good." The lie hung in the air between us, clean and effortless. She didn't even blink. I slept on the couch that night, told her I'd fallen asleep watching TV. She didn't ask why I hadn't come upstairs. The next week I started keeping a calendar, not the kind you hang on the fridge. A private one, a small notebook I kept in my truck. I wrote down everything, where she said she'd be, when she said she'd be home, who she said she was with. Then I'd write down what actually happened. The gaps started to add up. Tuesday, May 21st. Said she'd be at yoga, 6:30 to 8. Got home at 9:45. Hair dry, no gym bag. Friday, May 24th. Said she was having drinks with coworkers. Came home at 11, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. Sunday, May 26th. Said she was running errands. Gone for 4 hours. Came back with 1 bag from Target. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to be sure. Because once you say it out loud, once you accuse someone of something like this, there's no walking it back. Either you're right and everything changes, or you're wrong and you look insane. So I waited. And then came the phone call. It was a Tuesday evening, early June. I'd just gotten home from the hospital. Long shift, emergency generator test that went sideways, and Emma was upstairs. I could hear her voice through the bedroom door, muffled but animated, the kind of tone she used to use with me. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, listening. I know, she was saying, laughing. "He's completely oblivious." A pause. "No, I'm serious. He doesn't notice anything. I could walk in with a tattoo on my forehead, and he'd ask if I needed help with the groceries." Another pause, longer this time. "Thursday works. Same place?" I walked back into the kitchen before she came downstairs. When she did, she was smiling, lighter somehow, like she'd just unloaded something heavy. "Who was that?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Jenna," she said. "We're getting lunch on Thursday." I nodded, wrote it down later in the notebook. Jenna, Thursday, lunch. Except Jenna didn't exist, not the way Emma described her. I knew this because I'd met Jenna once 2 years ago at a company holiday party. She was loud, sarcastic, 7 months pregnant at the time, and had spent most of the night complaining about her husband's obsession with fantasy football. Emma barely tolerated her, so either Emma had developed a sudden friendship with someone she used to mock, or Jenna was a convenient cover story. I spent the next 2 days running through scenarios in my head, trying to logic my way out of the obvious conclusion. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was paranoid, reading into things that didn't mean anything. But then Thursday came, and that's when it all fell apart. Emma left for work at 7:30, same as always. She was wearing a navy dress, heels, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look polished and efficient. She kissed me on the cheek, quick, automatic, and told me she'd be home late. "Lunch with Jenna, then a project meeting that'll probably run long," she said. I nodded. "Drive safe." She left. I waited 5 minutes, then called her. She picked up on the 3rd ring. "Hey, what's up?" "Hey," I said. "Just wanted to check. Did you grab your laptop charger? I think I saw it on the counter." "Oh," a pause. "Yeah, I've got it. Thanks." "No problem. Have a good day." I hung up. She'd sounded distracted but not defensive. Normal. At noon, I called again. "Hey," I said. "Quick question. Your friend's coming by the house later, right? Around 2? Silence. What? Jenna, I said. She texted me, said she was dropping off that book you mentioned. I told her you wouldn't be home, but she said she'd leave it on the porch. No. Her voice was sharp now, tight. No, she's not. Why would she? She said you told her it was fine. I didn't say that. She sounded flustered, breathing faster. Don't let her in, okay? If she shows up, just don't let her in. Okay, I said. No problem. I've got to go, she said, and hung up. I stood there in the kitchen, phone in my hand, staring at the counter. There was no friend, no text. I'd made it up, and my wife had panicked. I sat down at the table and tried to think through what I'd just heard. She hadn't asked why Jenna would show up unannounced, hadn't laughed it off or told me I'd misunderstood. She'd gone straight to panic, straight to, don't let her in, which meant she thought Jenna was real, which meant Emma had lied to someone else about where she was today, someone who might actually reach out, someone who might check, someone who might ruin whatever story she'd been telling. I looked at the clock. It was 12:15. I grabbed my keys and drove to Monarch. The restaurant sat on a corner downtown, big windows facing the street, white tablecloths, the kind of place where business deals got made over $50 steaks. I parked across the street, 2 blocks down, and waited. At 12:40, Emma walked in. Alone. She was smiling, talking on her phone, gesturing with one hand. She wore sunglasses even though it was overcast. The hostess greeted her like she'd been there before, led her to a table by the window. I watched her sit down, check her phone, sip water. At 12:50, a man walked in, tall, probably my age, maybe younger, khakis, button down, no tie, hair gelled back, clean shaven, the kind of face you'd see in a real estate ad. He smiled when he saw Emma, leaned down to kiss her cheek, not quick, not automatic, and sat across from her. They talked, laughed, ordered drinks. I stayed in my truck, hands on the steering wheel, watching through the windshield like I was surveilling a construction site. Emma reached across the table and touched his hand. He didn't pull away. I sat there for another 10 minutes, long enough to see them order food, long enough to see Emma lean in close and say something that made him grin, and then I started the engine and drove home. I didn't speed, didn't swerve, didn't feel anything except a strange, cold clarity, like someone had turned off all the noise in my head and left me with a single clean thought. She'd been lying for months, and now I knew. When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote everything down. Date, time, location, what I'd seen. I wrote it like I was filing a maintenance report. Just the facts, no commentary, no emotion. Then I closed the notebook and went upstairs. Emma came home at 8:30. "Hey," she called from the door. "Sorry I'm late. Meeting ran forever." I was sitting on the couch, TV on, volume low. I looked up when she came in. "No problem," I said. "How was lunch with Jenna?" She froze just for a second, then smiled. "Good. We went to that sandwich place on Maple." "Nice," I said. "She doing okay?" "Yeah, she's great. You know Jenna, always has a story." I nodded, turned back to the TV. Emma stood there for a moment like she was waiting for me to ask another question, then headed upstairs. I didn't move. The thing about facilities work is that you learn to see systems. HVAC, plumbing, electrical, everything's connected. You pull one wire, something else stops working. You fix one pipe, another one starts leaking. You can't solve a problem if you don't understand how the pieces fit together. So I started mapping Emma's system. Over the next 3 days, I tracked her movements the way I'd track a faulty circuit. I checked her schedule against the calendar on the fridge, listened to her phone calls without looking like I was listening, watched where she went, when she came home, who she mentioned in passing. The man's name was Tyler. I learned this from a coffee cup. Emma had stopped at a cafe on her way home Friday night, left the cup in her car. I found it the next morning when I was taking out the trash. White paper cup, name scrawled in Sharpie on the side. Tyler. not hers. She always ordered oat milk lattes, no foam. This was black coffee, no sugar. Tyler. I stood there in the driveway, holding the cup, and tried to picture him. The man from the restaurant. Clean cut, confident. The kind of guy who ordered black coffee and didn't apologize for taking up space. I threw the cup away and went back inside. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened Emma's laptop. She'd left it on the counter, unlocked, open to her email. I told myself I was just checking the calendar, making sure I hadn't missed anything. But once I was in, I kept scrolling. There were no smoking gun emails, no love letters, no incriminating messages. Emma was smarter than that. But there were gaps. Meetings listed on her work calendar that didn't match what she'd told me. Lunch blocks that stretched for 2 hours. A note in her personal calendar. Tea, 7 p.m., Riverwalk. Riverwalk was a park on the east side of town. Quiet, scenic, the kind of place couples went to talk. I closed the laptop. I didn't feel angry. I felt something colder, sharper, something closer to relief, because now I wasn't guessing, now I knew. That night, Emma and I sat across from each other at dinner. She ate salad, I ate pasta. We didn't talk much. "You seem quiet," she said after a while. I looked up. "Just tired, long week." She nodded, like that explained everything, and went back to scrolling her phone. I watched her, really watched her, and tried to remember when I'd stopped being someone she thought about. Maybe it was gradual, a long, slow fade. Or maybe there'd been a specific moment, a day when she looked at me and decided I wasn't enough. It didn't matter, because I'd decided something too. The hardest part about knowing the truth is that you can't do anything with it yet, not if you want to do it right. I spent the weekend pretending everything was normal. Emma went to yoga Saturday morning, or said she did, and I mowed the lawn, fixed the screen door, replaced the batteries in the smoke detectors. Normal husband things. But inside, I was running scenarios. If I confronted her now, she'd deny it. She'd cry, maybe, or get defensive, accuse me of being paranoid. She'd say Tyler was just a coworker, a friend, someone she grabbed lunch with sometimes because her job was stressful and I didn't understand what she dealt with every day. And maybe I'd believe her. Not because it made sense, but because believing her would be easier than facing what came next. So I didn't confront her. Instead, I confirmed. Monday morning, I called in sick to work. Told my supervisor I had food poisoning, needed a day to recover. Then I parked half a block from Emma's office and waited. She arrived at 8:40, same as always. Parked in the garage, walked into the building with her coffee and her shoulder bag, disappeared through the glass doors. I waited. At 11:30, she came out. Alone. She got in her car, pulled out of the garage, and headed east. I followed, keeping 2 cars between us, trying not to feel like a cliché. She didn't notice me. Why would she? I was predictable, reliable, completely oblivious. She drove to the Riverwalk. I parked at the far end of the lot, behind a landscaping truck, and watched her walk down to the path that ran along the water. She was on her phone, texting someone, smiling at the screen. At 11:50, Tyler showed up. He was driving a silver SUV, new enough to still have the dealership plates. He parked near Emma's car, got out, and met her by the trailhead. They hugged, long, comfortable, the kind of hug that said this wasn't their first time. They walked together, side by side, close enough that their shoulders bumped. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't need to. The body language told me everything. I stayed in the truck for 20 minutes, just watching, making sure I wasn't imagining it. Then I took out my phone and snapped 3 photos. Wide shots, clear enough to identify faces, not close enough to look obsessive. When they circled back toward the parking lot, I left. I drove home, parked in the driveway, and went inside. The house was quiet. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the notebook. I wrote down what I'd seen. The time, the location, the hug. I printed the photos from my phone, clipped them to the page. Evidence. That's what I needed. Not suspicions, not gut feelings. Evidence. The kind that couldn't be argued away or explained as a misunderstanding. Because when this was over, and it would be over, I wanted her to know that I'd seen everything, that I'd been watching, that she'd underestimated me. That night, Emma came home at 7, same as always. "Hey," she said, setting her bag on the counter. "How was your day?" "Quiet," I said. "Yours?" "Busy, back-to-back meetings." I nodded. "You eat?" "Grabbed a salad." "Where?" She paused, just for half a second. "That place by the office, the one with the bowls." "Cool," I said. "I'm making pasta if you want some." "I'm good. Thanks, though." She went upstairs, and I heard the shower turn on. I stayed in the kitchen, stirring sauce, thinking about how easy it was for her to lie, how practiced, how comfortable. The next morning, I went to the hospital early, before shift started, and talked to a buddy in IT. His name was Frank, mid-40s, balding, the kind of guy who spent his lunch breaks fixing people's phones for free because he liked solving problems. We'd worked together on a server room cooling project last year. He owed me a favor. "Need a weird ask," I said, sitting in his office. "How weird?" "Phone records, text logs, call history." He raised an eyebrow. "You spying on someone?" "My wife," I said, keeping my voice flat. "I think she's cheating." Frank didn't flinch. He just nodded, like I'd asked him to troubleshoot a printer. "You sure you want to go down this road?" "I'm already on it," I said. "Just need proof." He thought about it for a moment, then shrugged. "I can't get you text content. That's encrypted. But call logs, timestamps, contact frequency, that's doable. You on the same plan?" "Yeah. Give me 2 days." I thanked him and left. 2 days later, I had a printed spreadsheet showing 6 weeks of Emma's call activity. There was a number she called or texted nearly every day, sometimes multiple times. Calls that lasted 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20. Texts sent late at night, early in the morning, during her lunch breaks. I ran the number through a reverse lookup. Tyler Hollis, age 36, owner of Apex Property Solutions, a real estate flipping company based downtown. I stared at the name on the screen and felt something click into place. Not anger. Not hurt. Just certainty. I opened a new browser tab and searched his company. Found a website with professional headshots, project photos, testimonials from happy clients. Tyler's bio said he specialized in high-value renovations and investment property turnarounds. He looked exactly like the kind of man Emma would fall for. Ambitious, polished, the type who talked about portfolio diversification and market trends over expensive drinks. I bookmarked the page and closed the laptop. That night, I took Emma out to dinner. I didn't tell her where we were going, just said I wanted to try somewhere new, somewhere nice. She seemed surprised, maybe even pleased, like I'd done something thoughtful for once. I drove us to Monarch. We got a table by the window, the same table I'd seen her at with Tyler. She didn't react, didn't flinch, just ordered wine and smiled at me like this was a normal date. "This place is nice," she said, looking around. "Yeah," I said. "I heard good things." "When were you here before?" "I wasn't," I said. "Just heard about it." She nodded, sipped her wine, checked her phone. I ordered steak. She ordered salmon. We made small talk about work, about the house, about nothing that mattered, and the whole time I watched her lie. When the check came, I paid cash and left a generous tip. On the way out, I stopped by the hostess stand. "Quick question," I said, keeping my voice friendly. "My wife and I are thinking about having lunch here sometime this week. Do you guys take reservations?" "We do," the hostess said. "Just call ahead." "Great. And you're open for lunch every day?" "Monday through Saturday, 11 to 3. "Perfect, thanks." Emma was waiting by the door, scrolling her phone. She looked up when I joined her. What were you asking about? Reservations? I said. Thought we could come back. She smiled. That'd be nice. We drove home in silence. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and opened the notebook. I had everything I needed now. Photos, phone records, timeline, locations. Emma had been seeing Tyler for at least 2 months, maybe longer. Lunches, park walks, dinners. She'd lied about her schedule, her friends, her whereabouts. She'd built an entire second life right under my nose and assumed I'd never notice. She was wrong. I turned to a blank page and started planning. I found Tyler's office on a Wednesday morning, tucked into a renovated warehouse on the east side of downtown. Apex Property Solutions shared the second floor with a graphic design firm and a yoga studio. The lobby was all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place that tried too hard to look casual. I took the elevator up and walked into the Apex reception area. A young woman sat behind a glass desk, typing on a laptop. "Can I help you?" she asked, smiling professionally. "Yeah," I said. "I'm here to see Tyler Hollis." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but it's important. Tell him it's about Emma." Her smile faltered, just a little. "One moment." She picked up the phone, spoke quietly, then hung up. "He'll be right out." I waited. Tyler appeared a minute later, coming through a frosted glass door, looking exactly like his website photo. Confident. Pressed shirt, no tie, phone in hand. He sized me up in half a second, the way I was standing, the way I was dressed, the fact that I was here at all. "Can I help you?" he asked, keeping his voice neutral. "We should talk," I said. "Privately." He hesitated, then nodded. "Sure. Come on back." He led me down a short hallway to a corner office with big windows overlooking the street. The desk was clean, the walls covered in framed photos of renovated houses. Everything about the room said success, ambition, forward momentum. Tyler closed the door and leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "So, what's this about?" I stayed standing. "Emma." He didn't react, just watched me, waiting. "I know," I said. "About the lunches, the park, the dinners, all of it." His expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Calculation. "I think you've got the wrong idea," he said. "No," I said. "I don't." He tilted his head, studying me. "And you are?" "Her husband." Silence. Tyler pushed off the desk, ran a hand through his hair, then laughed, short, humorless. "Okay. So you drove all the way down here to what? Confront me?" "To let you know I exist," I said. "I know you exist," he said, his tone sharper now. "Emma talks about you." "I bet she does." He stepped closer, dropping the polite act. "Look, I don't know what you think is happening. I think you've been screwing my wife for 2 months," I said. "And I think you assumed I'd never find out." He stared at me, jaw tight, then shrugged. "So now you know. What do you want? An apology?" "No." "Then what?" I took a step forward, closing the space between us. "I want you to understand something. You think you're careful. You think you've covered your tracks. But I've been watching. I've seen where you go, when you go there, who you talk to. I know more about your life than you think I do." Tyler's expression hardened. "Is that a threat?" "It's information," I said. "What you do with it is up to you." He laughed again, but it sounded forced. "You know what? You should be mad at your wife, not me. I didn't make any promises to you." "You're right," I said. "You didn't. But she did. And you knew that when you started this. She said you two were done." "Did she?" He didn't answer. I pulled out my phone, opened the photos I'd taken at the Riverwalk, and held the screen toward him. "This is from last Monday. You recognize it?" He glanced at the photo, then looked away. "I've got more," I said. "Call logs, texts, receipts, timeline. I know everything, Tyler. Where you live, where you work, who your clients are. I know about the flip on Sycamore Street, the condo project on 3rd. I know your business partner's name. His face paled. You're insane. No, I said. I'm thorough. I put the phone back in my pocket and stepped closer, lowering my voice. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop seeing Emma. You're going to delete her number, block her contact, and if she reaches out, you're going to ignore her. And if I find out you didn't, if I see you anywhere near her, I'm going to make sure every client, every investor, every person you've ever worked with knows exactly what kind of man you are. Tyler straightened, trying to look unbothered. You can't. I can, I said, because I have proof, photos, records, and I've got nothing left to lose. He didn't respond. I turned toward the door, then stopped. One more thing. She told me you were just a coworker, a friend, someone she grabbed lunch with. So whatever story she sold you about us being over, she's lying, same way she lied to me. I walked out. Tyler didn't follow. I took the elevator back down, walked to my truck, and drove home. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt calm, clear, like I'd just finished rewiring a complicated circuit and watched the lights come on exactly the way they were supposed to. That evening, Emma came home at 6. She seemed distracted, checking her phone more than usual, typing out long messages, and then deleting them. I watched her from the kitchen, pretending to read the news on my laptop. Everything okay? I asked. She looked up, startled. Yeah, fine. Just work stuff. Anything I can help with? No, it's nothing. She poured herself wine and went upstairs. At 8:30, her phone rang. I heard her answer it, her voice low and tense. I can't talk right now, she said. No, I said I can't. Stop calling me. She hung up. A few minutes later, it rang again. She let it go to voicemail. I stayed downstairs, waiting. At 9, she came back down, poured more wine, and sat on the couch next to me. She didn't say anything, just sat there, staring at the TV, her jaw tight. You sure everything's okay? I asked. I'm fine, she snapped, then softer. Sorry. Long day. I nodded. It happens. She drank her wine in silence. The next morning, I woke up early and checked Emma's car. She'd left it unlocked, keys on the kitchen counter. I went through the glove box, the center console, the seat pockets. Found nothing unusual, just registration papers, a phone charger, some old receipts. But then I checked under the driver's seat. There was a burner phone, cheap, prepaid, the kind you buy at a gas station with cash. I turned it on. It had one contact saved, T, and 2 unread messages from yesterday. We need to talk. Call me. I turned the phone off, put it back where I found it, and went inside. Emma was upstairs getting ready for work. I sat at the kitchen table drinking coffee, running through possibilities. She'd panicked. Tyler had told her I'd shown up, and now she was scrambling. The burner phone meant she'd been more careful than I thought, but not careful enough. When she came downstairs, she looked exhausted. Makeup couldn't hide the circles under her eyes. You sleep okay? I asked. Not really, she said. Lot on my mind. Anything you want to talk about? She looked at me for a long moment, like she was deciding something. Then she shook her head. Just work stuff. Nothing important. Okay, I said. But if you need to talk, I'm here. She nodded, grabbed her coffee, and left. I gave her a 5-minute head start, then followed. She drove straight to Tyler's office. I parked across the street, 2 blocks down, and watched her go inside. She was there for 15 minutes. When she came back out, she was crying. Tyler didn't walk her out. She sat in her car for a while, wiping her face, checking her phone. Then she started the engine and drove away. I didn't follow her this time. I didn't need to. Because now I knew. Tyler had ended it, and Emma had just realized she'd lost control. I gave Emma 2 days. 2 days to figure out what had happened. 2 days to process that Tyler was gone, that whatever future she'd been imagining with him had evaporated. 2 days to realize she'd traded stability for a fantasy and lost both. She spent those 2 days unraveling. Thursday, she stayed home from work. Said she had a migraine. She spent most of the day in bed, lights off, door closed. I brought her water, asked if she needed anything. She said no. Friday, she tried to act normal, got up, got dressed, went to work. But when she came home, she was brittle. Sharp. When I asked how her day went, she snapped at me. "Why do you keep asking me that?" "Just making conversation," I said. "Well, don't." She poured wine, drank it too fast, poured more. I watched her from the kitchen, calm and quiet, and waited. Saturday morning, she was up early, pacing the house, cleaning things that didn't need cleaning. She scrubbed the kitchen counters, reorganized the pantry, folded laundry that had been sitting in the dryer for 3 days. At noon, I said, "We need to talk." She stopped folding, hands frozen mid-motion. "About what?" "About Tyler." She didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there holding a towel, staring at me. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said finally. "Yes, you do." She set the towel down, crossed her arms. "If you have something to say, say it." I pulled out the notebook. Her eyes tracked it as I set it on the counter, flipped it open to the first page. "March 15th, I said. "You said you were meeting Jenna for dinner. You went to Monarch with Tyler. $140 on the credit card." Her face went pale. "April 22nd. You said you were at yoga. You weren't. You were at the Riverwalk with Tyler. I have photos." I slid one of the printed photos across the counter. Emma stared at it, her hands trembling. "May 10th. You said you worked late. You went to dinner at Monarch again. Same table, same man." I flipped another page. June 3rd, lunch at the Riverwalk. June 6th, coffee downtown. June 9th, his office. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "I know everything, Emma. Where you went. When you went. Who you were with. I know about the burner phone under your seat. I know about the texts, the calls, the lies." She was shaking now, tears streaming down her face. How did you... You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I was too busy, too oblivious, too boring to pay attention. But I did. I saw everything." She sank into a chair, covering her face with her hands. It wasn't... "Don't," I said. "Don't try to explain it. Don't tell me it didn't mean anything. Don't insult me." She looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks. "I didn't want to hurt you. But you did. I know." Her voice cracked. "I know. I'm sorry." "Are you?" I asked. "Or are you just sorry you got caught?" She didn't answer. I closed the notebook. "Tyler ended it, didn't he?" Her eyes widened. "How?" "Because I told him to." She stared at me, mouth open. You talked to him?" "I did," I said. "I went to his office, told him I knew everything. Told him if he didn't stop seeing you, I'd make sure everyone he worked with knew what kind of man he was." Emma stood up, backing away from me like I'd just pulled a weapon. You can't do that." "I already did," I said. "And he listened. Because he's smart enough to know when he's been caught." She was breathing hard now, panic flooding her face. "What did you say to him?" "The truth. That you're married. That you lied to him. That whatever story you sold him about us being over was a fantasy. You had no right." "I had every right," I said, my voice rising for the first time. "You're my wife. You took vows, you made promises, and you broke them. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said. "You got bored. You met someone who made you feel special. You convinced yourself you deserved better. So you lied. To me, to him, to everyone." She was sobbing now, full body shaking. "I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did," I said. "And now you have to live with it." I picked up the notebook, tucked it under my arm, and walked toward the door. Where are you going? She asked, her voice desperate. To see a lawyer, I said. I'm filing for separation on Monday. No, please. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, Emma. She grabbed my arm, pulling me back. Please don't do this. I made a mistake. I'll end it, I swear. I'll never see him again. You already ended it, I said, because he won't take your calls anymore. I made sure of that. She let go, stumbling backward, and I walked out the door. Behind me, I heard her collapse, heard her crying, heard her say my name over and over like it might change something. It didn't. I got in my truck, started the engine, and drove away. I didn't go to a lawyer. Not yet. I went to the hospital, to the maintenance office, where it was quiet and empty on a Saturday afternoon. I sat at my desk, opened the notebook one more time, and stared at the pages. Evidence, timeline, proof, everything I needed to walk away clean. I thought about Emma, sitting in our house, realizing that the life she'd built, the one where she got to have everything, where she got to keep me as a safety net while she chased something else, was over. I thought about Tyler, sitting in his polished office, realizing that his reputation, his business, his carefully constructed image were all one phone call away from collapsing. And I thought about myself, the underestimated husband, the oblivious fool, not anymore. I closed the notebook, locked it in my desk drawer, and walked out of the building. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. I stood there for a moment, keys in hand, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief, not happiness, not peace. Just the cold, clean satisfaction of knowing I'd won. I got in my truck and drove home. When I walked in, Emma was sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. Her eyes were red, her face blotchy. She looked up when she heard me come in. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I set my keys on the counter and looked at her, really looked at her, for what felt like the first time in months. "Now?" I said. "Now you figure out what you're going to do, because I'm done." She opened her mouth to say something, but I turned and walked upstairs. Behind me, I heard her start crying again. I didn't look back. In the bedroom, I packed a bag, clothes, toiletries, the notebook. Enough for a few nights. I didn't know where I was going yet, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that I was leaving, on my terms, with my dignity intact. When I came back downstairs, Emma was standing in the doorway, blocking my path. "Please," she said, "please don't go." I looked at her. "Move. We can fix this. I swear, I'll do anything." "There's nothing you can do," I said. "It's over, Emma." She stepped aside, still crying, and I walked past her. I loaded the bag into my truck,